Now, we're going to cover a lot of news and information today. We're going to break down the entire waterfront on the economy, on very important police state developments, on huge developments where, as David Knight just pointed out, the authoritarians that camouflage themselves as the left are all over the news. And we have articles on this right now at Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.com. It's now being picked up even by the Washington Post, and others have been saying, is Obama a dictator? Howard Dean came out and said, well, he is acting like a dictator, but maybe that's what we need. So again, create the crisis, offer the solution, which is more power, then things get worse, then offer the solution, more power, and then things get worse, offer the solution, more power. This is a classic communist tactic of problem, reaction, solution, of Cloward and Piven is one of the more modern examples from the 60s of official university studies and reports on how to bankrupt the country, how to get us onto welfare, make us dependent, and finally totally bankrupt the system to cover the re-education of the nation. Use that crisis to bring in total control, social unrest, and then out of the ensuing crises, only a centralized collective like government backed with corporations, and then using sports as propaganda to overlay their takeover message in sports messages. They found that's a way to unify people. So first they break things down, then they unify people through propaganda in sitcoms, dramas, movies, TV shows, education, sports mainly. That's their main tool. Nelson Mandela bragged that was their main tool, using sports as propaganda. And then finally rebuild the new society. And we're going to be going over all of that here today on this live Friday edition as we broadcast worldwide. We've also got huge new domestic police state news on the front of the TSA. Now, I'm going to break down from now until the bottom of the hour in some detail. Again, I'm on the road. If I was there at the office, I could have all these printed out and all the areas highlighted I wanted to cover. But I'll give kind of a gestalt of who Nelson Mandela really was and what he did in South Africa coming up in just a few minutes. And then at the bottom of the hour, Jakari Jackson is doing a report on this in the Nightly News tonight. He was the one that discovered this vicious new article in Esquire with an Army military officer saying, quote, yes, we will pry the guns from your cold, dead hands. And so David Knight and I will read over some of these quotes and cover that at the bottom of the hour. I have Don Salazar right now and Kurt Nimmo posting the article on Infowars.com so you can comment on it. Just a snippet of the first part of the article and some of the quotes, then we will write a whole response article under that snippet. That's how I want that done, to respond to this. But the Pentagon's main mission now, not just internationally, but domestically, is to respond to indigenous groups that don't want to be taken over by the globalists, by the corporate New World Order. Our military is becoming a backup arm. It has been for a long time, but a pure backup arm of authoritarian takeover. And you've got West Point, you've got the Army War College, all of them training to, quote, fight the Tea Party, gun owners, returning veterans, libertarians, anybody that isn't basically a communist or an elitist above that. Because, again, it's always big banks and power that funds communism and socialism and domestication at a low level. Because if you're pigs or cows, in a barn being fed, collectivized, you are pretty much given an equal amount. And then, of course, you've got the people that live in the farmhouse, 50 yards away, though. That's the establishment. So you're going to live in a 200-square-foot coffin apartment and work in a slave factory for the greater good of everyone in the collective. They're going to take your money, and they're going to live offshore in 500-room palaces with 25 jets apiece, ocean liners, 747s with pleasure palaces, and Luxembourg and Switzerland, and they're going to have 20, 30 mistresses. The Saudi princes are going to have whole harems of hundreds of women. It's the same deal. And of course, they're all the ones promoting that we be socialized and that middle class not be able to have guns or family raise their children or own property. because this is what modern slavery is. And so we're going to be breaking that down coming up at the bottom of the hour with David Knight. But David, give folks just a brief minute or two on the headline, who this guy is, and some of his quotes, a foreshadowing of what's coming up, because this is the mainlining of the culture where the American people are the enemy and will be disarmed by the military now under globalist control.
Well, this guy, Alex, was a lieutenant colonel, and he taught history at West Point. And that's a very important position because he's not just teaching them how to clean their rifle. He's shaping their worldview. And this is how he starts out the article. He says, "My job at the end of the day is about killing. I orchestrate violence, but my profession is about directed violence on behalf of the nation." But by that, what he really means is the government. That's what he sees as the nation. And he goes on to, yeah, exactly. He goes on to say he's got a program here about how he's going to limit guns to just smoothbore or rifle muzzle loading black powder muskets. But here's what he says in point number 2. "We will pry your gun from your cold, dead fingers because I am willing to wait until you die, hopefully, of natural causes. Guns, except for the 3 approved categories, cannot be inherited. When you die, your weapons will be turned to the local police department, which will then destroy them." Then he says police departments would no longer be allowed to sell or auction weapons. Then he says he would submit a new tax on ammunition. In the first 2 years, 400% of the current retail price. Thereafter, it would increase by 20% a year.
We're going to cover that at about 35 or 40 after. We're going to break that down in detail. That's just a foretaste.
Yeah.
We're going to give you his name, everything. The article is going up on Infowars.com right now. But I just want to stop and explain something to everybody. West Point is training the entire officer corps, the elite officer corps for the U.S. Army. So, and he's not the only one. This is pretty much, you don't get a job there now unless you do this. And this is why there's a culling of the general staff of the military as well. And remember, a secondary West Point for officers in ROTC, I'd say it's in the top 10 of lower level officer schools, would be something like College Station and Texas A&M. And at Texas A&M, they now have professors teaching in the military history. There's no right to guns. We will take your guns. The Constitution's bad. We're going to get rid of free speech, too. So this is open enemy operations, open saboteurs, open infiltrators of the foreign megabanks that have captured America. That isn't rhetoric. That's what's happened. Literally teaching sedition and treason. And you have free speech in this country to say anything you want as long as it doesn't call for violence against someone, unless you're in government or in a critical infrastructure area teaching the overthrow of the Bill of Rights and Constitution. That is illegal. 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 I mean, if I was preaching the overthrow of the office of the presidency and putting something new in, that would be illegal. If the president was executing the Bill of Rights and Constitution. So this is sedition from within the system, but it's not really sedition because these are globalist operators and they're foreign officers. And by the way, they have the, what's his name, Thomas Barnett, one of the Army War College top professors. You can see a C-SPAN interviews, because C-SPAN has them all archived back 25 years now, online for free. You can just search it. We got to do a flashback on Thomas Barnett giving lectures on C-SPAN, but to the generals. C-SPAN come and shows him talking to the generals, and he goes, listen, you serve the New World Order. You serve foreign corporations and banks, and you serve the centralized system now, and America doesn't exist. You serve Wall Street. Everyone is a piece of stock, a human resource, and that's the way it is. And they just beat them with this until they give into it or say they're for it, and they get promoted. We have to remember with Barnett and others, there's a whole bunch of these guys. We have to remember with Barnett and all the rest of them that the key to all of this is that, again, they're openly operating for a foreign power. And it's just like in the film Network, where the executive calls in the anchor and says, you have meddled with the tidal forces of nature, Mr. Beale, and you will atone. And that's basically what this is they are bringing us into a corporate system where we have no rights except with our piece of stock. But even that has no rights. So it's a modern, high-tech form of slavery. Now, David and listeners, when we come back, I'm going to get into Nelson Mandela. and break down who he really was, and a little bit into the next segment because I've gotten behind as usual. Then we're going to look at this particular lieutenant colonel, who's not the only one. You have to understand, this is the new officer class. This is it. I mean, this is happening. And they're culling the military of anyone who's pro-America, pro-liberty. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Why is nascent iodine so important?
Nascent iodine is so important because it goes directly to the thyroid. It's not bonded to a salt, which means it doesn't have to be broken down, and it's the most usable form. It's what the body uses. It's what the body is designed to use. If you have low energy levels, if you have pains, if you have thyroid problems, if you don't feel up to par, well, they've proven now that the fluoride and a lack of iodine causes a decreased IQ because you have all this stuff that builds up inside your system and builds up and builds up. And that's why some people, when they start taking iodine, will have what's called a Herxheimer reaction or a detoxification reaction. But that's a good sign. That means you're detoxifying all that fluoride buildup, the mercury buildup in there, the bromine buildup in your system, and the chlorine buildup in your system. You don't want those things. All of those things have been proven as carcinogens. That's one of the reasons prostate cancer is on the rise too, is because prostate takes up iodine, and the men that are lacking iodine causes the prostate to become cystic and causes the prostate to swell and eventually leads to prostate cancer. There's been an extreme rise in polycystic ovarian disease, PCOS, with women, fibrocystic breast disease, because iodine is stored in the breast tissue, the ovaries, the prostate glands in men. It's utilized by every single cell in the body.
Why does this almost taste good compared to other iodine that tastes horrible? That's because it's real iodine atomic form.
We wanted something that's going to go straight into the bloodstream and straight into the thyroid gland. We wanted to put it in a vegetable glycerin base. That's a USP kosher certified vegetable glycerin base. And that product is not tested on animals. It's vegan friendly. It's gluten free. It's GMO free.
Of all the things I've done, nascent iodine was just absolutely amazing. So we developed with Dr. Group a double strength, low price. InfoWarsLife.com, Survival Shield, the atomic nascent iodine, available right now.